Jin Woo sat in his office on the top floor of the human embassy. The morning sun of Nexus Prime shined through the tall windows. He was reading reports from different worlds when his door burst open. "Ambassador Jin!" Nahe ran into the room. Her face was white with fear. "We have a big problem." "A very big problem." Jin looked up from his papers. Nahe had worked with him for 5 years. She never got scared easily. If she was afraid, something was very wrong. "What happened?" Jin asked. He stood up and walked to her. Nahe held up her communication device. "The Valorian Empire attacked 3 worlds last night. They broke the peace treaty. The Galactic peace accords are finished." Jin felt his heart sink. The peace accords had taken 20 years to make. Every major species in the galaxy had signed them. They promised no more wars between the star systems. "Which worlds?" Jin asked. "Kepler Station, New Terra, and the mining world of Zephyr. All 3 are neutral worlds. They had no weapons to fight back." Nahe's voice shook. "Thousands are dead." Jin walked to the window. Outside, he could see the tall buildings of Nexus Prime. This was the capital of the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds lived here. For 15 years, Jin had worked to keep peace between them all. "Call an emergency meeting," Jin said. "Get all the ambassadors together. We need to talk about this now." Nahe nodded and left the room. Jin stood alone, thinking. The Valorian Empire was strong, but not stupid. Why would they attack neutral worlds? It made no sense. 2 hours later, Jin walked into the main council chamber. The room was huge, with seats for over 200 ambassadors. Today, almost every seat was full. The air buzzed with angry voices in dozens of languages. Jin took his seat in the human section. Around him, he could see the other species. The Etherians looked like tall, thin crystals that glowed with blue light. They made musical sounds when they talked. The Draconians were large and covered in scales. They had sharp teeth and claws. The collective members looked like insects, but were as smart as any human. Ambassador Crix of the Etherians stood up. His crystal body flashed red with anger. "The Valorians have broken the sacred peace. We must attack them now." "We must make them pay," many ambassadors agreed. They shouted and waved their arms. The Draconian ambassador, Thane Gorvek, stood up. He was 8 feet tall and very scary. "The Draconians agree," Gorvek roared. "We will burn their worlds to ash. The old ways of blood and fire must return." The collective ambassador, known as Node 7, spoke in a cold, mechanical voice. "The collective will withdraw from all Galactic affairs. Peace is impossible. We will protect only our own worlds." Jin listened to all of them. Every species wanted to do something different. Some wanted war, some wanted to hide, some wanted revenge. But Jin noticed something they all missed. He stood up slowly. The room grew quiet. Jin was known as the bridge builder. For 15 years, he had helped solve problems between different species. When others fought, Jin found ways to make peace. "Friends," Jin said in a calm voice, "I understand your anger. I understand your fear, but we need to think about this carefully." "Think?" Crix flashed bright red. "They killed innocent people. There is nothing to think about." "That's exactly why we need to think," Jin replied. "The Valorians are not stupid. They know attacking neutral worlds would make everyone angry. They know it would break the peace. So why did they do it?" The room grew quiet. Jin continued. "I've been watching the Valorians for years. They are proud but not crazy. They don't attack without reason. These attacks, they seem desperate." "Desperate?" Gorvik laughed. "They have the strongest fleet in the galaxy." "Yes, but look at which worlds they attacked," Jin said. "Kepler Station has rare metals. New Terra has energy crystals. Zephyr is a mining world. They didn't attack military bases. They attacked resource worlds." Node 7's mechanical voice spoke up. "The collective has noticed this pattern too. It suggests resource acquisition rather than conquest." Jin nodded. "Exactly. The Valorians need something badly. Bad enough to break the peace and make everyone their enemy." "So what?" Crix demanded. "They still killed innocent people." Yes, they did, Jin said sadly, and they must answer for that. But if we just attack them, we'll never know why they did it. We'll never solve the real problem. The room was quiet now. Jin looked around at all the different faces. Humans were different from other species in many ways. Where others saw only enemies, humans tried to understand why someone became an enemy. What do you suggest? Asked Ambassador Yira of the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. I suggest we investigate, Jin said. Before we start a war that could destroy millions of lives, let's find out what's really happening. Let's find out why the Valorians are so desperate. Gorvik slammed his fist on his desk. Investigation is for cowards. The Draconians demand action, and action without understanding is for fools, Jin replied calmly. The Valorians have broken the peace. That's true. But there might be more to this story. Give me 3 days. Let me investigate. If I find nothing, then we can decide what to do. The ambassadors looked at each other. Some were still angry. Others looked thoughtful. Finally, Node 7 spoke. The collective agrees to Ambassador Jin's proposal. 3 days for investigation, then we decide. One by one, other ambassadors agreed. Some did it reluctantly. Jin knew they trusted him because of his reputation. For 15 years, he had never failed to find a peaceful solution. As the meeting ended, Jin felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The galaxy was on the edge of war. Everyone was angry and scared. But Jin had learned something important in his years as a diplomat. Humans had a special gift. They could see past anger and fear. They could find hope where others saw only darkness. They could build bridges where others saw only walls. Now he had 3 days to save the galaxy from war. 3 days to find out why the Valorians had broken the peace. 3 days to do what humans did best, find a way to make enemies into friends. As Jin left the council chamber, he began to plan. He would need to be careful. He would need to be smart. But most of all, he would need to be human. Because sometimes being human was the most powerful thing of all. The next morning, Jin Woo stood in his office with Tae Bin, his security chief. Tae Bin was a big man with scars on his hands from his days as a soldier. He had fought in 3 wars before becoming Jin's protector. Ambassador, the other diplomats are meeting right now, Tae Bin said. They're planning military strikes against the Valorians. Don't you want to join them? Jin shook his head. No, while they plan to fight, we're going to do something different. We're going to talk. Tae Bin looked confused. Talk? With who? The Valorians won't speak to anyone. They've closed all communication channels. Not with the Valorians, Jin said with a small smile. With someone they threw away? Someone who might know their secrets? Jin walked to his computer and pulled up a file. On the screen was a picture of a woman. She had human features but also had the silver skin and pointed ears of the Valorians. This is Yumi, Jin explained. She's half human, half Valorian. The Valorians exiled her 10 years ago because of her mixed blood. She's been living in the outer systems ever since. Tae Bin frowned. Why would she help us? She probably hates both humans and Valorians. Maybe, Jin said. But she's the only person who understands both sides. And sometimes the people who get thrown away know the most important secrets. 2 hours later, Jin and Tae Bin sat in a small cantina on the lower levels of Nexus Prime. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of alien food. This was where outcasts and exiles came to hide. Yumi walked in wearing a dark cloak. She was tall and thin like the Valorians, but her eyes were soft like human eyes. She sat down across from Jin but kept looking around nervously. Ambassador Jin, she said in a quiet voice. I heard you wanted to meet me? This is dangerous. If the Valorians find out I'm talking to you, they won't, Jin said gently. I promise you're safe here. Yumi laughed bitterly. Safe? I've never been safe. The Valorians hate me because I'm part human. Some humans don't trust me because I'm part Valorian. I belong nowhere. Jin leaned forward. That's exactly why I need to talk to you. You see both sides. You understand what others can't. What do you want to know? Yumi asked, why did the Valorians attack those worlds? It doesn't make sense. They had to know it would start a war. Yumi was quiet for a long moment. She looked around the cantina again, then spoke in a whisper. The Valorian Empire is dying, she said. Jin and Tae-bin looked at each other. What do you mean? Jin asked. Their home system is running out of resources. The energy crystals that power their ships and cities are almost gone. They've been hiding this for 5 years, but now they're desperate. Why didn't they ask for help? Tae-bin asked. Yumi shook her head. You don't understand Valorian culture. They believe asking for help is weakness. They would rather die than admit they need other species. Jin felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. So they attacked resource worlds to take what they need? Yes, Yumi said, but it's worse than that. My contacts in the Empire tell me they're planning more attacks. They think if they can control enough resource worlds, they can trade for what they need. But that will never work, Jin said. The other species will unite against them. They'll be destroyed. The Valorian leaders know this, Yumi said sadly. But they're too proud to change course. They'd rather fight and die than admit they made a mistake. Jin sat back in his chair. This was the kind of problem that other species couldn't solve. The Etherians would demand the Valorians surrender. The Draconians would want to fight until one side was destroyed. The collective would simply cut off all contact. But humans were different. Humans understood that sometimes people did terrible things not because they were evil, but because they were scared and proud and didn't know how to ask for help. Yumi, Jin said carefully. If the Valorians could get the resources they need without fighting, would they stop the attacks? Maybe, Yumi said. But they would never admit they need help. Their pride won't let them, Jin smiled. Then we don't ask them to admit anything. We just solve the problem. After Yumi left, Jin and Tae-bin walked back to the embassy. On the way, they met Rasol, an Etherian scientist who worked at the Galactic Research Center. Rasol's crystal body glowed with curiosity. Ambassador Jin, I have been studying human diplomatic methods for my research. What you are doing is very interesting. What do you mean? Jin asked. Other species solve problems with force or logic or by making rules. But humans do something different. You try to understand why problems happen. You look for the feelings behind the actions. Jin nodded. We call it empathy. We try to understand how others feel. Yes. Rasol's body flashed with excitement. This is what makes human diplomacy so effective. You don't just solve the problem you can see. You solve the problem underneath. What do you mean? Tae-bin asked. Rasol turned to him. The Valorians attacked because they need resources. But the real problem is their pride. They can't ask for help. Other species would either force them to surrender or fight them until they're destroyed. But humans will find a way to help them without making them feel weak. Jin smiled. That's exactly what we're going to do. The next day, Jin called another meeting with the ambassadors, but this time he didn't just tell them what he had learned. He adapted his approach to each species. To the Etherians, he spoke in musical tones about harmony and balance. To the Draconians, he talked about honor and strength. To the collective, he used logic and efficiency. The Valorians are not our enemies, Jin told them. They are a proud people facing death. They chose to fight because they didn't know how to ask for help. We can give them what they need and stop the war. Why should we help them? Demanded Crix. They killed innocent people. Because, Jin said simply, helping them saves more lives than fighting them. And because sometimes the best way to stop an enemy is to help them become a friend. The room was quiet. Jin could see the ambassadors thinking. This was the human way, not to destroy enemies, but to understand them and find ways to help them. It was a strange idea to most species. But as Jin had learned over the years, strange ideas sometimes worked better than normal ones. Especially when those strange ideas came from humans. Jinwoo couldn't sleep. Something was wrong with Yumi's story. It was true, but not complete. He sat in his office at 3 a.m, looking at star charts and trade records. Han Jae knocked on his door. Han was Jin's intelligence officer, a quiet man who noticed things others missed. He carried a thick folder under his arm. Ambassador, I found something strange, Han said. He sat down and opened the folder. I've been checking the Valorian resource crisis. You're right, they're running out of energy crystals. But look at this. Han spread out several papers. 5 years ago, the Valorians had plenty of crystals. Then suddenly, their main supplier stopped selling to them. No explanation, no warning, just ... Stopped. Jin leaned forward. Who was the supplier? A company called Nexus Mining Corporation. They had exclusive rights to the crystal mines on 3 different worlds. But here's the strange part. Right after they stopped selling to the Valorians, they started selling to a new company called Shadow Holdings. Shadow Holdings? Jin frowned. I've never heard of them. Han nodded grimly. Nobody has. They don't exist in any official records, but they control mining operations on dozens of worlds. And they're selling resources at very high prices. Jin felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Someone created the Valorian crisis on purpose. That's what I think too, Han said. Someone wanted the Valorians to be desperate. Someone wanted them to attack those worlds. Jin stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Nexus Prime glowed in the darkness. But why? Who benefits from a galactic war? Han pulled out another paper. I found something else. Remember the Draconian Civil War 10 years ago? It started when their food supplies were poisoned. The poison came from a company owned by ... Shadow Holdings. And the Etherean Crystal Plague 5 years ago? Same thing. The infected crystals came from Shadow Holdings. Jin felt his heart racing. Someone has been starting conflicts across the galaxy. Someone who stays hidden and profits from war. I think they call themselves the Hegemony, Han said quietly. I found references to them in old intelligence files. They're supposed to be a myth, a secret organization that manipulates galactic politics. Jin turned back to Han. If they're real, we need to find them, and we need to stop them. How? We don't even know who they are, Jin smiled grimly. We do what humans do best. We go where we're not supposed to go, and we ask questions we're not supposed to ask. The next day, Jin met with Mibio, a cultural anthropologist who worked for the human embassy. Mibio was small and quiet, but she spoke 17 different alien languages and could blend in almost anywhere. I need you to help me with something dangerous, Jin told her. Mibio raised an eyebrow. How dangerous? We're going to pretend to be traitors and infiltrate a secret meeting, Mibio grinned. Now you're talking my language. What kind of meeting? Han had found information about a gathering of business leaders on a space station in neutral territory. The meeting was secret, but Han had intercepted a communication about it. They were discussing new opportunities for profit in the coming conflicts. Jin, Mibio, and Taebin took a small trading ship to the space station. They dressed as merchants from the Outer Rim, the kind of people who sold weapons and supplies. To anyone with money, the space station was old and dirty, perfect for secret meetings. They found the meeting room in the lower levels, hidden behind a fake cargo bay. Jin felt his heart pounding as they approached the door. This was the kind of risk that other species wouldn't take. Ethereans would send spies, Draconians would attack with force, but humans? Humans walked right into the lion's den. Inside the room, Jin saw something that made his blood run cold. There were representatives from a dozen different species sitting around a table. Valorians, Ethereans, Draconians, even some collective members. They were all working together. The Valorian attacks are proceeding perfectly, said a Valorian. In expensive robes? The other species are preparing for war, just as we planned. Excellent, replied an Etherean whose crystal body was black instead of the usual blue. Our weapon sales have increased by 300% in the last week. A Draconian with golden scales laughed. The fools think this is about resources. They have no idea we've been planning this for years. Jin listened in horror as the group discussed their plans. They called themselves the Hegemony, and they had been manipulating galactic politics for decades. Every major conflict, every war, every crisis, they had caused it all. The beauty of the plan, said the Valorian, is that everyone thinks they're fighting for their own reasons. The Valorians think they're fighting for survival. The other species think they're fighting for justice. None of them know they're dancing to our tune. What about the human ambassador? Asked the Etherean. Jin Wu has been asking questions. The Draconian waved a clawed hand. One diplomat can't stop a galactic war. Besides, humans are weak. They always try to talk instead of fight. By the time he figures out what's happening, it will be too late. Jin felt anger burning in his chest. But he also felt something else, determination. These people thought humans were weak because they chose peace over war. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The meeting continued for another hour. Jin learned that the hegemony had agents in every major government. They controlled mining companies, shipping routes, and communication networks. They had been slowly building their power for over a century, but they made one mistake. They underestimated humans. As they left the space station, Mibio shook her head in amazement. I can't believe they fell for our disguises. They really think humans are harmless. Let them think that, Jin said grimly. It's about to become their biggest mistake. Tae-bin looked worried. Ambassador, these people are incredibly powerful. They have agents everywhere. How can we stop them? Jin looked out at the stars. We do what they don't expect. We do what no other species would do. What's that? We tell everyone the truth, all of it. Right now? Mibio and Tae-bin stared at him. That's crazy, Mibio said. It could cause panic. It could make things worse. Or, Jin said with a smile, it could do something the hegemony never planned for. It could unite everyone against them. Jin knew this was the biggest risk of his career. But humans didn't become great by playing it safe. They became great by doing what others thought was impossible. It was time to show the galaxy what humans were really made of. Jin Wu stood in the emergency meeting room with his team. Hanjae had spread out all the evidence about the hegemony on the table. Mibio was checking her recording devices. Tae-bin stood guard by the door. This is madness, said Wu-ri, the military liaison from Earth. She was a tough woman with gray hair and cold eyes. You want to broadcast everything to every world in the galaxy? At the same time? Yes, Jin said calmly. Complete transparency, no secrets, no hidden information. Wu-ri shook her head. Ambassador, this could cause panic. Riots, some governments might collapse. The stock markets will crash. People will be terrified. People are already terrified, Jin replied. They're preparing for war, they're buying weapons. They're saying goodbye to their families. At least this way, they'll know why. Nahe looked worried. Jin, the other ambassadors will be furious. They'll say you broke all diplomatic protocols. They might even arrest you. Maybe, Jin said. But the hegemony has been playing a game in the shadows for over a century. They win because nobody knows they exist. Once everyone knows about them, they can't hide anymore. Hanjae pointed to the evidence. We have recordings of their meetings, financial records, lists of their agents, everything we need to expose them. But what if it backfires? Wu-ri asked. What if knowing the truth makes things worse? Jin walked to the window. Outside, he could see ships leaving the spaceport. Families were fleeing Nexus Prime, afraid of the coming war. I've been thinking about this all night, Jin said. Every species in the galaxy has been manipulated by the hegemony. They've been turned against each other, made to fight over things that weren't real problems. He turned back to his team. But what if they knew the truth? What if they realized they were all victims of the same enemy? Mibio nodded slowly. You think they'll unite against the hegemony instead of fighting each other? It's possible, Jin said. Humans believe that most people, no matter what species they are, want the same things: safety, peace, a good life for their children. If they know who the real enemy is, they might work together, Tae-bin finished. Wu-ri crossed her arms. And if you're wrong? If this causes chaos and makes everything worse? Jin met her eyes. Then I'll take responsibility. But doing nothing guarantees a war. At least this way, we have a chance. 2 hours later, Jin stood in the main communication center of the embassy. The technicians had set up equipment to broadcast to every major world in the galaxy simultaneously. It would be the biggest information release in galactic history. Are you ready, Ambassador? Asked the chief technician. Jin nodded. Begin the broadcast. Jin looked into the camera. Behind him, screens showed the evidence they had gathered, documents, recordings, financial records, everything. Citizens of the galaxy, Jin began. My name is Jin Wu, human ambassador to the Galactic Council. I'm about to tell you something that will shock you. Something that will change everything you think you know about galactic politics. He paused, then continued. For over 100 years, a secret organization called the Hegemony has been manipulating our governments. They have caused wars, they have created resource crises. They have made us fight each other while they profit from our conflicts. Jin showed the evidence piece by piece. The poisoned food that started the draconian civil war. The infected crystals. That caused the Etherean plague. The artificial scarcity that drove the Valorians to attack neutral worlds. Every major conflict in the past century has been caused by the Hegemony, Jin said. They have agents in every government. They control mining companies and shipping routes. They have been playing us against each other like pieces on a game. Bored, the broadcast continued for 30 minutes. Jin showed everything. He named names. He revealed financial connections. He played recordings of Hegemony meetings. The Valorians who attacked those worlds are not evil, Jin said. They are desperate people who were manipulated into thinking they had no choice. The same is true for every species that has been at war. We are all victims of the same enemy. As the broadcast ended, Jin felt exhausted. He had just broken every rule of diplomacy. He had revealed state secrets. He had accused powerful people without a trial. He might have caused panic across the galaxy. Now we wait, he said to his team. They didn't have to wait long. Within hours, reports started coming in from across the galaxy. But they weren't reports of panic or chaos. They were reports of something else entirely. On Valorius Prime, citizens were marching in the streets. But they weren't marching to support the war. They were demanding that their government stop the attacks and find a peaceful solution. On Ethereal, the crystal beings were sharing their technology freely with other species. They realized that the Hegemony had been keeping them isolated by making them afraid of others. On Draconia, the warrior clans were forming a united front. But their enemy wasn't the other species. It was the Hegemony agents who had been manipulating their honor codes for decades. This is incredible, Nahe said, reading the reports. The Valorians are offering to share their mining technology. The Etherians are giving away their energy synthesis knowledge. The Draconians are offering military protection to worlds that can't defend themselves. Jin smiled. This is what happens when people know the truth. When they realize they're not enemies, they start working together. But not everyone was happy with Jin's broadcast. Within hours, he received angry messages from dozens of governments. They accused him of causing chaos. They demanded he be arrested. Ambassador Jin, said a stern voice behind him. Jin turned to see Admiral Cranks of the Galactic Defense Force. You are under arrest for violation of diplomatic protocols and endangering galactic security. Jin held up his hands. I understand, Admiral. But before you arrest me, look at what's happening across the galaxy. Look at what truth can do. Admiral Cranks hesitated. His communication device was buzzing with reports from across the galaxy. Reports of cooperation instead of conflict. Reports of species working together instead of preparing for war. The Hegemony is real, Jin said quietly. They've been manipulating all of us. Even you, Admiral, even your defense forces. Check your records. See how many conflicts you've been sent to stop that were actually caused by Hegemony manipulation. Admiral Cranks looked at the reports in his hands. His face grew pale as he read them. My God, he whispered. Half the conflicts we've dealt with in the past 10 years. They all trace back to companies owned by Shadow Holdings. Jin nodded. The Hegemony has been using the defense force to clean up the messes they create. They start conflicts, then profit from both sides while you risk your lives to stop them. Admiral Cranks looked up at Jin. What do you need from me? Help me find them, Jin said. Help me stop them. Help me show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than manipulation. For the first time in hours, Jin felt hope. The truth was spreading. Across the galaxy, species that had been enemies for generations were starting to work together. The hegemony's power was built on secrets and lies. Now their secrets were exposed, and lies couldn't survive in the light of truth. The real battle was just beginning. 3 days after Jin's broadcast, the galaxy was changing. Species that had been enemies for generations were working together. The Valorians had stopped their attacks and were sharing their technology. The Etherians were teaching others how to make clean energy. The Draconians were protecting trade routes from pirates, but the hegemony was not finished. Jin was in his office when the alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed everywhere. Naha ran in, her face white with terror. "Ambassador! We're under attack. Multiple worlds are being bombed." Jin rushed to the communication center. The screen showed destruction across the galaxy. Space stations exploded, cities burned. Ships attacked civilian targets. "How many worlds?" Jin asked. 43 so far, Hanjie replied grimly. "All major population centers. Millions of people are in danger." Admiral Cranks appeared on the main screen. "Ambassador Jin, the attackers are using ships from different species. Valorian destroyers, Etherian cruisers, Draconian fighters. It looks like everyone is attacking everyone." "But that's impossible," Jin said. "I just saw reports of cooperation from all those worlds." "The ships are real," Crank said, "but their identification codes are fake. Someone is using stolen or copied ships to make it look like the species are fighting each other." Jin felt his heart sink. The hegemony. They're trying to restart the war by making everyone think they're being attacked by their new allies. "It's working," Crank said sadly. "Some worlds are already breaking their new agreements. They think they've been betrayed." Jin closed his eyes and thought. This was the hegemony's last desperate move. They had been exposed, so now they were trying to create so much chaos that nobody would care about the truth. "Admiral," Jin said, "can you trace where the attacks are coming from?" "We're trying, but the ships keep changing their signatures." "It's like they're ghosts?" Jin turned to his team. "Han, I need you to send a message to every world that's been attacked. Tell them to check their own fleets. I bet they'll find that. Some of their ships are missing." Han nodded and started typing. Within an hour, reports came back. Every attacked world had ships that were supposed to be in port but weren't there. "The hegemony stole ships from everyone," Jin said. "They're using our own weapons against us." But Jin noticed something else. The attacks were terrible, but they weren't random. The hegemony was targeting specific places, government buildings, communication centers, places where people made decisions. "They're not trying to kill everyone," Jin said. "They're trying to cut off communication between worlds. They want to stop people from talking to each other." "Why?" Tabin asked. "Because when people talk, they figure out the truth. The hegemony knows that if the species keep cooperating, they'll lose their power forever." Jin made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of asking for military help, he sent a different kind of message to every world in the galaxy. "Citizens of all species," Jin broadcast, "the hegemony is trying to trick you. They're using stolen ships to make you think your new allies are attacking you. Don't let them divide you. Talk to each other. Share information. Work together." What happened next amazed even Jin. Across the galaxy, ordinary people started helping each other. Valorian civilians used their mining equipment to rescue Etherians trapped in collapsed buildings. Etherian healers worked day and night to help wounded Draconians. Draconian warriors protected collective settlements from attacks. "This is incredible," Nahe said, reading the reports. The hegemony thought attacking civilians would make everyone angry and scared. Instead, it's making everyone work together. Even more, Jin smiled. That's what humans understand that other species don't. When you attack innocent people, you don't make them want to fight each other. You make them want to protect each other. But the hegemony had one more surprise. Jin was in the communication center when a familiar face appeared on the screen. "It was an old man with kind eyes and gray hair. Jin's heart nearly stopped. "Hello, Jin," the man said sadly. "It's been a long time." "Jae-soo," Jin whispered. "My teacher. My mentor." Jae-soo had been Jin's first boss when he became a diplomat. He had taught Jin everything about negotiation and peacemaking. Jin had loved him like a father. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," Jae-soo said, "but I'm the leader of the hegemony." Jin felt like the ground was falling away beneath him. "Why? Why would you do this?" Jae-soo's face was sad but determined. "Because I've seen what happens when species are left to themselves, Jin. They fight, they kill, they destroy each other. The hegemony has prevented dozens of wars by creating smaller, controlled conflicts." "You've killed millions of people," Jin said. "To save billions," Jae-soo replied. "Do you know what the galaxy was like before the hegemony? Constant war, endless suffering. We brought order to chaos." Jin shook his head. "You brought suffering to order. You made people afraid of each other. You stopped them from learning to live together. Living together is a dream, Jin, a beautiful dream, but not reality. Most species are too different. Too proud, too scared. They need to be managed or they'll destroy everything." "You're wrong," Jin said firmly. "Look at what's happening right now. Look at how people are helping each other. Look at how they're working together." Jae-soo sighed. "That won't last. When the crisis is over, they'll go back to fighting." "They always do, maybe," Jin said. "But shouldn't we let them try? Shouldn't we give them the chance to prove you wrong?" For a long moment, Jae-soo was quiet. Then he spoke in a voice full of pain. "I've spent my whole life trying to prevent suffering, Jin. I've made terrible choices. I've done horrible things. But I believed it was necessary." "I know," Jin said gently. "And I understand why you did it. But there's another way." "There's always another way." Jin took a deep breath. "Jae-soo, you taught me that the best diplomats are those who can see past anger and fear. You taught me to look for the good in everyone." "That includes you?" Jae-soo looked surprised. "You're not angry with me?" "I'm angry about what you did," Jin said. "But I'm not angry at you. You're my teacher, you're my friend. And I think deep down, you want the same thing I do. You want peace." Tears appeared in Jae-soo's eyes. "I'm tired, Jin. I'm so tired of all the secrets, all the lies, all the manipulation." "Then stop," Jin said simply. "Help us build something better. Help us show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than control." Jae-soo was quiet for a long time. Around the galaxy, the attacks were stopping. Hegemony agents were surrendering. The stolen ships were returning to their home ports. "You really believe it's possible?" Jae-soo asked. "Peace without control?" "I believe it's worth trying," Jin said. "And I believe you can help us make it happen." Jae-soo smiled through his tears. "You always were my best student. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning." 6 months later, Jin Woo stood in the great assembly hall of Nexus Prime. The hall had been rebuilt after the hegemony attacks, but this time it was different. Instead of separate sections for each species, the seats were mixed together. Etherians sat next to Draconians. Valorians worked alongside collective members. Humans shared tables with dozens of different species. Today was the signing of the new Galactic Compact. After months of discussion and planning, every major species had agreed to a revolutionary new form of government. Not an empire ruled by the strongest. Not a council controlled by the oldest civilizations, but a democracy where every voice mattered. "Ambassador." "Jin," said Ben-ho, walking up to him. Ben-ho was young and eager, one of the new generation of human diplomats. "The ceremony is about to begin. Are you ready?" Jin smiled. "I think so. Are you ready to take over when I retire?" Ben-ho looked nervous. "I hope I can do as well as you have." "You'll do fine," Jin said. "To just remember the most important lesson. Every being in the galaxy wants the same basic things. Respect, safety, a chance to build something good for their children." They walked to the center of the hall where a large table waited. On the table was the new Galactic Compact, a document that would change everything. It established the first truly democratic galactic government based on cooperation rather than dominance. Jin looked around the room and saw faces that amazed him. Yumi was there, no longer in exile, but now the official ambassador from the Valorian worlds. Rasul had become the head of the new Galactic Science Council, sharing Etherian knowledge with all species. Even Admiral Cranks was there, now leading the new Galactic Peace Corps instead of a military force. But the person who surprised Jin most was Jae-Soo. His former mentor sat in the front row. No longer the secret leader of the hegemony, but now the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Instead of hiding secrets, he now worked to make sure all information was shared openly. "Citizens of the galaxy," Jin said as he stepped up to speak. 6 months ago, we were on the edge of war. Different species were preparing to destroy each other. Fear and anger ruled our decisions. He paused and looked around the room. But something amazing happened. When we learned the truth about who our real enemies were, we didn't turn on each other. We turned toward each other. The hall was completely quiet. Representatives from hundreds of worlds listened as Jin continued. The Valorians didn't just stop their attacks. They shared their mining technology with everyone. The Etherians didn't just forgive past conflicts. They taught other species how to make clean energy. The Draconians didn't just offer protection. They learned new ways to be strong without being violent. Jin smiled. Every species has brought something special to this new alliance. The collective's logical thinking. The Etherians' advanced science. The Draconians' courage and honor. The Valorians' determination and skill. But what about humans? Called out someone from the audience. What do humans bring? Jin thought for a moment. Humans bring the belief that enemies can become friends. That problems can be solved through understanding instead of force. That cooperation is stronger than competition. He gestured to the people around the room. Look around you. 6 months ago, many of you were enemies. Today, you're partners. That didn't happen because of advanced technology or superior firepower. It happened because we chose to trust each other. The signing ceremony began. One by one, representatives from each world signed the compact. As they signed, they made commitments that would have been impossible before. The Valorians promised to share their resources fairly with all species. The Etherians agreed to teach their healing arts to anyone who wanted to learn. The Draconians pledged to protect smaller worlds from any threat. The collective offered their computational power to solve galactic problems. When it was Jin's turn to sign for humanity, he felt the weight of history. This wasn't just a treaty. It was proof that his approach had worked. That understanding was stronger than fear. That building bridges was better than building walls. After the ceremony, Jin found himself talking with a group of young diplomats from different species. They were excited about the future and eager to learn. Ambassador Jin, said a young Etherian whose crystal body glowed bright blue. How do you always know what to say to make enemies stop fighting? Jin laughed. I don't always know. I make mistakes just like everyone else. But I've learned that most conflicts happen because people don't understand each other. When you help them understand, fighting becomes unnecessary. A young Draconian raised her clawed hand. But what if someone really is evil? What if they just want to hurt others? Jin thought about Jae-Soo and the hegemony. Even then, you try to understand why they became that way. Sometimes people do bad things because they're scared or hurt or desperate. If you can help them with those feelings, they might choose to do good things instead. Like you did with the hegemony leader? Asked a young Valorian. Exactly, Jin said. Jae-Soo wasn't evil, he was afraid. He thought the only way to prevent big wars was to cause small ones. When I showed him another way, he chose to help instead of hurt. As the evening continued, Jin watched the representatives from different worlds talking and laughing together. Species that had been enemies for centuries were making plans to work together. The Valorian mining technology combined with Etherian energy science would revolutionize how resources were gathered. Draconian military strategy mixed with collective logic would create new ways to keep peace. But more than that, they were becoming friends. Real friends who cared about each other's well-being. Later that night, Jin stood on the balcony of his office, looking out at the lights of Nexus Prime. Naha joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "So," she said, "what's next for the famous bridge? Builder?" Jin took a sip of tea and smiled. "I think it's time for the bridge builder to step aside and let others do the building. Bin-Ho and the others are ready. They understand what we've accomplished here." "And what have we accomplished?" Hey asked. Jin looked out at the stars, where thousands of worlds were now working together instead of fighting each other. "We've proven that peace isn't just the absence of war," he said. "Peace is the presence of understanding. And understanding is something any species can learn if they're willing to try." In the distance, ships from dozens of worlds were arriving and departing in harmony, former enemies working together, former strangers becoming friends, former conflicts becoming cooperation. It was exactly what Jin had always believed was possible. It was exactly what humans did best. They built bridges where others saw only walls. And those bridges could hold the weight of an entire galaxy.